strikeouts in a row now for Keuchel. He has 6.
It's Game 3 of the American League Division Series next on MLB Network.
In the game of baseball, there is a special place. A place built by tradition and lit by the warm glow of memory. A cherished and fertile proving ground where legends are cultivated. A field of dreamers. They come to fulfill a promise to themselves, to write an epic story on diamond-shaped pages. It doesn't matter what jersey they wear. This is where they play their best. It's as pure as the smile on a face, and as powerful as history in the making. And no matter where the game has taken them, they still long to come back. They have built it, and now we have come. The magic of the postseason unfolds next. It isn't heaven, but it's pretty darn close.
And welcome to this Division Series telecast on MLB Network, presented by Geico. With the pregame ceremonies underway, we're at Minute Maid Park as the American League wildcard winning Houston Astros play host to the defending American League champion Kansas City Royals in Game 3 of their best-of-5 series. First postseason game here in Houston in about a decade. Welcome to Minute Maid Park with Hall of Famer John Smoltz, Matt Vasgersian. The atmosphere electric in what's been a really fun series to watch so far.
It really has. You talk about the two games. The Astros have strength in their aggression. They're aggressive at the plate. They're aggressive on the bases. But basically the Royals counteract that with their aggressiveness on the bases, but they're patient as a lineup. So each team has done what they wanted to do, win a game in this pivotal Game 3. We'll see who wins out.
Yeah, let's walk you through what happened in Kansas City in the first 2 games of this series. The Astros took an early lead in Game 1, silenced the home crowd, a couple of home runs, George Springer and the red-hot Colby Rasmus, and it was a lead that the Astros never gave back. Game 2 started out in similar fashion. Houston took the early lead, but Kansas City tied it with a couple of runs in the 6th. They came through with the go-ahead run in the 7th, courtesy of Ben Zobrist. And from there, it was the outstanding, nasty Kansas City bullpen that took over. And the Royals had evened up this best-of-5 series at 1 apiece. So the series is back in Houston today, and it's an Astros lineup this afternoon that once again features the youngest player to ever play in a postseason Astros game. He'll be a very important guy today as well. We say hello to the 3rd member of our broadcast crew, John Palmarosi, for more on Carlos Correa. JP.
Yeah, Matt, you can feel down here the end of this 10-year drought without a postseason game here in Houston. And moments ago, I spoke with Carlos Correa about the atmosphere here today.
Well, we were on the road for a long time. We clinched a playoff berth. We won a wildcard game, and now we're here at home finally. Can't wait to see the fans, to see how loud they get out there when we go out there and play. It's going to be really fun.
Carlos, what are the keys going to be to using this crowd to your advantage here in Game 3?
Oh, it's key. We've been playing great at home all year long, and I bet the fans are going to come out here and support us in a big way, and we can wait for them to be out there cheering for us. It's going to be a fun day for us.
Thanks, Carlos.
Thank you.
Now, there's only one player on this Astros team who was on the team back in 2005. That's relief pitcher Chad Qualls. And moments ago, Chad told me, if you think it's loud right now, just wait until the game begins. Matt, back to you.
All right, JP, thanks. The pregame ceremony's underway. The Royals finishing out their introductions, and we're going to get it to the Astros PA announcer, Bob Ford, in a moment for the rest of the player introductions. The atmosphere here is electric. As loud as it was in Kansas City, John, you're talking about a dome stadium here with the roof closed and a fan base that hasn't seen postseason baseball since 2005.
Well, the Astros took the Royals crowd out of it. They want to keep their home crowd in it, so that means early success and a lead.
Getting closer to first pitch in Houston. We're back with more right after this. Welcome back to Houston. So far, a compelling set of pitching matchups in games 1 and 2 of this series, and as good as those games were to watch from a pitching standpoint, none more compelling perhaps than what we're going to see today. Dallas Keuchel, who's been brilliant at home, and Edinson Volquez for the Royals, John. And though he's only faced Houston once in the last few years, at the end of the day, he's never lost to the Astros. A perfect 6-0 against Houston.
Well, he's up for a big task. Volquez is going to have his secondary pitches working against this lineup. Yes, there's a lot of strikeouts in this lineup, but if Volquez doesn't get secondary pitches over, it's going to be a long game. And then what can you say about Dallas Keuchel? I don't care where you pitch, what level. If you're 15-0 at home, you're doing something right. And really, when we talk about Dallas Keuchel, it's all about soft contact. He's got two of the greatest pitches, but this guy just never seems to get squared up. And Statcast is going to show us why. I don't care if you call it a sinker or two-seam fastball, it's nasty. The hitter thinks he sees it one area and just gives up on it. Look for each corner to be a huge part of today's game. That two-seam fastball allows for this type of action off the bat. Exit velocity under 60 miles an hour is not going to produce a lot of good results, and that's exactly what he does. He's in the top 3 in softest contact. We see again exit velocity, a sinker in, jams him at 45 miles an hour. This could prove for easy work for the infield. And when we look at 85.58, the lowest average exit velocity, when you want to know why this guy's going to win the Cy Young, that stat and the ability to throw his two-seam fastball and slider against these left-handed hitters for Kansas City, they know they're up against it.
There's so much great intrigue in this matchup. A guy that gets a lot of outs by working outside the strike zone against a Royals team that rarely fishes outside the strike zone. Game 3 is coming up. We're going to take a quick break in Houston. We'll be back with the starting lineups and the opening pitch coming up next. Welcome back to Houston alongside Hall of Famer John Smoltz and JP Morosi. Matt Vasgersian back for Game 3 of this American League Division Series between the Astros and the Royals. A terrific matchup tonight. Both managers aware of what's at stake. The Game 3 winner in a best-of-5 format, when the series is tied 1 apiece, goes on to win the series almost 80% of the time. A.J. Hinch oversaw a 19-game improvement from last year's Astros team, the best by any first-year manager in Astros history. And on the other side, the winningest manager in Kansas City Royals franchise history, Ned Yost, trying to get back to the postseason and finish the job they came oh so close to finishing last year. Well, the Astros are excited to be home. And Ned Yost is aware of how difficult it is on a visiting team in this ballpark, but he's been saying for the last couple of days when asked, hey, I like it loud. Bring on the noise.
Yeah, this is what you say when you put on a uniform. It's what you play for. And this game is so important. You've alluded to it statistically, but I think for Ned Yost, he's going to be able, if the game is close, to really utilize his bullpen. This is not a must-win for Kansas City, but if you can knock off a guy that is 15-0 at home, you got to feel real good. And not only that, know you're going to go at least back home if you can win one of these next 2 games.
The Astros take the field behind their staff ace as the umpires go over a rather long set of ground rules in this ballpark, and there's a lot to be mindful of in the outfield here. You take a look at the umpires today. Mike Everett works the plate. The crew chief, Jerry Davis, is at second base. And again, this is a 6-man umpiring crew with Lance Barksdale and Angel Hernandez down the lines.
A lot of things to look for. Home plate umpire Mike Everett. First time he's going to see this sinker, that late movement. Watch for either side of the plate to see which area that Dallas Keuchel can go to steal some strikes.
Let's take a look at the Royals Geico starting lineup for Game 3 of this division series this afternoon. Alcides Escobar, Ben Zobrist, and Lorenzo Cain. And as we go through this lineup, you'll notice no changes for Ned Yost through the first 3 games of the series. Eric Hosmer had a big base hit in Game 2. He's at first base batting cleanup. Kendrys Morales, 2 home runs in the opener. He's DHing once again this afternoon. Mike Moustakas, Salvador Perez, Alex Gordon, and Alex Rios rounding things out for Kansas City. It is the 27-year-old staff ace of the Astros on the mound in Game 3. Dallas Keuchel, after a fantastic start Tuesday to help beat the Yankees in the wild card game, is out for his second postseason assignment today.
Well, I could spend 7 innings on statistics of how good this guy is, but the one thing that he has utilized better than anything, as we mentioned in the open, is low contact. For the Royals, they're going to have to be aggressive early and see who gives first, meaning Keuchel throwing 2-seamers to get ahead or using his slider, because the last time they had success against Dallas Keuchel, the Kansas City Royals jumped on him early, although be it a lot of infield hits, not the most squared up, but they got to him early and they were able to beat him.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point right out of the gate, John, in that Keuchel has had 2 starting assignments against Kansas City this year, 2 very different results. A great one here at home, 8 innings of shutout baseball in June. A bad one in Kansas City, where, as you mentioned, the Royals jumped on him early and the Astros could never recover.
Even though the Royals do not strike out much, they will be aggressive when they need to and then approach their 2-strike approach much differently than other teams. That's why they last in the league in strikeouts.
We are underway in Houston. First offering is bounced to shortstop. Correa in the hold, off balance throw, and Carter can't finish on the receiving end on what would have been a magnificent play to open the ball game.
Well, you knew it right away, swinging at the first pitch. Carter should have had this. Maybe a little bit of nerves, but Correa makes an incredible play. Knee, no signs of getting hit. You see that ball right there. He may have anticipated it to skip more. And unfortunate start for Dallas Keuchel, but Kansas City, I would think that the theme's going to continue. Aggressive early.
That's going to be scored an infield single on the first pitch of the game for Alcides Escobar, and now Ben Zobrist, who's had a nice series, 4 for 8 in a couple of games against Houston, including an RBI and a stolen base. The 2-time All-Star surveying the defensive landscape against him, which is straight up, and Escobar off first to open the ball game. Keuchel's first pitch hits the corner for strike 1.
Well, you see Escobar trying to hit the bag and catches it awkwardly between the foot of Carter.
Quickly 0-2 to Ben Zobrist.
Well, with 2 strikes, this is what the Royals would like to avoid. With 2 strikes, Keuchel virtually gives up nothing, both on his slider and 2-seam fastball.
Opponents hit just 115 versus Keuchel's slider during the regular season. Here's the 0-2 home to Zobrist. He's able to check the swing.
And that's the pitch that's going to test Mike Everett today, is that 2-seamer late movement away. You can't tell at home, but that ball has real late movement, and the discipline of a hitter is going to be tested. You're wondering, the Royals like to run, so do the Astros. 5 stolen bases on the year off of Keuchel, so they're not running a lot.
This is one of the rare postseasons where the 2 top base stealing teams in the league match up head to head, and a swing and a miss by Zobrist to strike him out. You know, I was getting ready to say, John, that the Royals were undeterred in 2-strike counts in Game 2. 4 of their 11 hits came on 2-strike counts, but this is a different animal with 2 strikes.
This is a monster with 2 strikes. He just doesn't allow right-hander or left-hander to get comfortable because of the weapons that he has. Fastball, sinker, changeup, slider, occasional curveball, and occasional cutter. So he's covered all the quadrants, and he will live down on the corners on both sides of the plate.
The Royals do feature a handful of hitters that have had success against Keuchel in the past, and here's one of them, Lorenzo Cain, who fouls off the first pitch. Cain 5 for 12 with a home run against Keuchel. In fact, it's the middle of the order that's had the success against the Houston right-hander, Houston left-hander that is, in Cain, Hosmer, and Morales. So this is the tricky part of the order.
And the next offering is poked out to second base for Jose Altuve, who's got Kane, who steps on our microphone, and there are 2 away.
21 double plays has Dallas Keuchel induced. That one was hit too weakly. But if you stay up the middle, and we're going to see a variety of shifts, but if you stay up the middle and go the other way, easier said than done, you have a better chance against Dallas Keuchel. If you're looking to pull a two-seam fastball that moves late, that's where the soft contact is going to come in. That's where you're going to see the infielders get relatively easy ground ball chances.
Here's Eric Hosmer now, whose first hit of the series came in the 6th inning of Game 2 in Kansas City. Just reached out and tapped an 0-2 pitch from Oliver Perez into shallow left center to score a run, and it was a big part of the Royals' comeback in Game 2. Hosmer has had success against Keuchel, as mentioned. Small sample size, but 4 hits in 6 lifetime appearances. There's some of the soft contact you talk about, John, and it's good enough to retire the side without incident in the top of the first. Half inning gone in Houston. Royals 0, Astros coming to bat. To the bottom of the first as we take a look at the Geico starting lineup for the Houston Astros. Jose Altuve, George Springer, and Carlos Correa off the top. Colby Rasmus, the hottest hitter in the entire postseason, bats cleanup in left field. Evan Gattis. Carlos Gomez makes his first start of the series. Luis Valbuena, Chris Carter, and Jason Castro round things out for Houston. And on the mound for the Royals, the 32-year-old veteran right-hander Edinson Volquez, undefeated in 9 tries against the Astros for his career. And his first offering this afternoon is in for strike 1.
Well, one thing to look, pitchers are creatures of habit. On 4 days rest, he's 10-2. He has not pitched in quite some time. He came out of the pen and pitched 2 innings just before the season ended.
Jose Altuve rather early as he yanks one into the top tank to fall behind 0-2.
Some guys have had success off of Volquez, including Jose Altuve. They're going to try to get him out away and look for Volquez's changeup. If his changeup is good, he'll keep the Astros off balance. Also has a knuckle curve to go along with that.
Oh, 2 to Altuve is chopped out to shortstop for Escobar. 1 gone to start the afternoon for Volquez. Edinson Volquez has made a couple of postseason starts in the past. And just by looking at his results, you do not get an indication as to how he fared. And what I mean is the level of competition he happened to run into was historic. He started Game 1 of the National League Division Series as a Red when he ran into Roy Halladay's postseason no-hitter. Then last year, he was, unfortunately for he and the Pirates, on the other end of the Madison Bumgarner buzzsaw in the NL wildcard game. So though Volquez has not pitched badly through the course of history and certainly getting into the fall, he has had his postseason trouble, notably his opponents.
He hasn't been on the lucky side yet.
0-1 the count to George Springer. Springer 3 for 7 so far in 2 games in the series. He homered in Game 1 in Kansas City. You mentioned some of the head-to-head history between the Astros hitters and Edinson Volquez, John. 4 of the Astros in A.J. Hinch's lineup today have homered against Volquez in the past. A big wild swing and a miss, and it's 1-2 rather.
Well, Springer was also on the receiving end of an inside fastball that got his wrist and spent some time on the DL off of Volquez. Volquez, if he has one flaw, he gets underneath the pitch in time and it'll ride in and up on right-handers. But if he keeps it down, you see he's got plenty of velocity on his fastball.
And a swing and a miss by Springer to put him away.
Change up right there. That's a very hidden gem for Edinson Volquez. You think that fastball's coming, even though the ball was up a little bit. He wanted it away. You see the fade and change of speed that really gets the hitter
They are an aggressive hitting team. This is the most polished hitter in their lineup. He never really seems like he's swinging off balance. And oh, by the way, he's 21 years old.
The most polished and the youngest. In fact, the youngest Astro to ever play in a postseason game. 2 gone for Carlos Correa, one of the strong candidates for American League Rookie of the Year. It looked like the award was his to win until Francisco Lindor of the Indians went nuts in August and September.
Yeah, I've never seen a game changer this quick at this age and where he's become a team leader.
Soft liner to third, gobbled up by Mike Moustakas, and an all business start to the afternoon by the veteran Edinson Volquez. Through an inning, no score in Houston. This Division Series telecast on MLB Network is presented by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. And sponsored in part by Michelob Ultra. Fewer carbs, calories, and superior taste make it the superior light beer. And by Amazon Echo. Just ask. And another early swing and some success by Kendrys Morales. So with the men on, that'll bring up Mike Moustakas, who, as we check in with JP Morosi, has an interesting kind of pregame homage.
Yes, Matt, as you see right there, he's tracing the initials of his mother in the dirt right near the batter's box. Connie Moustakas passed away in August after a long battle with cancer, and Mike told me before this series begins that he wanted to make sure he brought her to the plate with him for every at-bat.
Been a tough year for Mike, especially when you consider his big coming out party last fall after a difficult on-field season in 2014. One of the Royals' brightest stars in the postseason. Things began in good shape for him in 2015, and as you could imagine, the loss of his mother certainly did affect him at some point during the year. But everybody in the Royals organization has talked about his toughness and how he's been able to, despite the difficult circumstances, get back out there and play.
No doubt, can't be a situation you ever prepare for. It's just something you end up dealing with. And this man went to spring training with a purpose as well, to try to make these kind of situations, the shift, not affect him like they did last year. So his ability to spray the ball might be a little more difficult off of Dallas Keuchel, but no shortstop standing there. Now they'll move with 2 strikes and get closer to traditional. And as I mentioned, that first pitch up the middle is going to be the key. The approach as a team, staying in there, not just trying to pull every pitch that Keuchel throws.
See the adjustment he's made and looking off field more often this year as he's able to check his swing on that breaking ball.
I don't know why catchers don't check every single time it's even close. As you see the numbers right there, that is a big time difference maker from a guy who was in the 220s to a guy now that harder to defend.
And a swing and a miss. That one tipped foul at the plate. So Moustakas able to stick around in there on 2-2. Keuchel gives up the leadoff base hit in the first. It was an infield single by Alcides Escobar. He was then stranded. And the Astros ace hoping for the same fate here in the second after Morales singled on the first pitch. Moustakas wraps it to Carter. To Correa covering, and that's all the Astros get. Satisfied with just the 1 out.
You never know how you're going to act when you have a lot of adrenaline and emotion. And Carter, just the first couple plays, just a little anxious. It's a guy you won't see much emotion out of no matter what he does, whether he hits a home run or strikes out.
So 1 out, 1 on for the Royals' 3-time All-Star catcher Salvador Perez. 2 for 7 in the series so far. A line that includes a Game 2 home run at Kauffman Stadium. This is one of the matchups that has gone Keuchel's way the past couple of years. Salvador Perez just 1 for 12 against the Astros ace. A ball and a strike.
but he will be able to hit the ball through that hole in the right side. He's shown he can do it. Abbreviated shift. You see where the second baseman is.
That's beaten on the ground and fouled up the third baseline. You know, there's been a lot of discussion after game 2 on the Astros and their fondness of overloading the infield. They are one of the more frequent defensive shifters in baseball the last few years. And though it cost him a couple of base hits in game 2, we talked to A.J. Hinch about it before the game, and he confirmed, look, that's who we are. You make a big deal about the shift when it doesn't work, but it works more often than not, and that's when you don't hear about it. He talked about some of the head-to-head games that the Astros have had specifically with the Royals and how they took away a couple of hits from Alcides Escobar in July. They will stay in that shift when they deem appropriate. Perez checks his swing to the fans' chagrin. 2-2.
Well, Dallas Keuchel won't light up the radar gun, but what he'll do is have so many different pitches move in so many different ways. He can throw that breaking ball in, followed by a sinker away. He can cut it in on your hands. But the one thing he can also do is freeze up right-handers on an inside pitch that looks like a ball and comes back over the plate.
You know, we talk about the shift and we talk about the 2 hits that came from it in game 2. Oliver Perez on the mound, and the hole on the right side was enormous for Kendrys Morales. And then Perez himself, here's what you're talking about, John. He hit that vacated spot on the right side of the infield as well. Ball misses in.
Well, he tried to do that exact point. Is he after breaking 2 breaking balls down in. Watch what he's trying to do. He's trying to freeze that corner, but this time he goes with the cutter.
Sal Perez walks once a week every near 30 plate appearances. He's hanging around on 3-2. And of all the unlikely things, I mean, we could talk about this series in this regard in more than just this sense. But Perez doesn't walk a lot. Yet he drew a 4-pitch walk that tied the game in game 2. The Astros won a game in game 1 in which they struck out 14 times. This series has been filled with unconventional facts on the winning side.
Well, as a ball club, that's what they do, though. You know, we talk about the Astros. They do what they do. They hit home runs. They strike out. They steal bases. Well, for the Royals end, they don't walk as a team, but they don't strike out as a team, and they too can steal some bases. So their 1 through 9 approach can be stingy towards some of the best pitchers in the game. That's really what they did last year as well. It's about the same stats throughout each year.
And a swing and a miss. Perez finally succumbs to Keuchel, his second strikeout of the day.
Well, defensively for the Astros, pretty darn good. You look in the outfield, although left and right field is pretty short porch. Colby's moved over. Gomez, you see the Gold Glove. And Springer and all that he adds, Altuve, Correa, and Valbuena, and of course Carter at first, and another Gold Glove in Dallas Keuchel. Jason Castro pretty much dominating the reps of late, taking this pitching staff to a great team ERA.
Here's Alex Gordon now. He takes strike 1. The longest tenured Royal, 2 for 7 so far in the series. And another Royal hitter that has not really enjoyed the assignments against Dallas Keuchel. Moustakas off first with 2 gone, and Gordon can't hang up. It's 0-2. struck him out. 3 strikeouts for Dallas Keuchel through 2 shutout innings in Game 3. Welcome back to this Division Series telecast on MLB Network presented by Geico with John Smoltz and John Palmarosi, Matt Vasgersian here at Minute Maid Park in Houston. Colby Rasmus leads things off to start the home second. Rasmus, Gaddis, and Gomez against Edinson Volquez. The red-hot Colby Rasmus, who has homered in each of the first 2 games of this series and has homered in each of the first 3 postseason games for Houston this year.
Might be the first time he's gotten to 2-0 that I can remember. He's always swinging at the first pitch.
I mean, I can understand what Edinson Volquez is doing here, right? Don't throw him a first pitch strike. Not going to make that same mistake this afternoon. Here's the 2-0. And it's 2 balls and a strike. Rasmus is just the 8th player in Major League history to homer in each of his first 3 games of a single postseason. And it's 2-2.
See the movement right there on a 2-seam fastball at 94. Rasmus holds his hands, almost looks like he rested on his shoulder, right? And then he comes and he loves to golf anything down. But that one to him looked like it was in off the plate for a ball and catches the corner.
Full count now, 3 balls and 2 strikes.
I'm sorry, Volquez disappointed himself. He got underneath that pitch, that changeup, and it floated away.
Here's the payoff pitch home, and there's ball 4 to Rasmus.
Well, another athletic defense. We're seeing 2 of the best outfields that I can remember. There's 4 Gold Gloves for Gordon, Lorenzo Cain, Alex Rios. Cain will have a lot of opportunity to run things down. You see Moustakas, Escobar, and Zobrist coming over, and then the gold at first and home.
Leadoff hitter aboard, first base runner of the afternoon for Houston. Now Evan Gaddis, the DH, 2 for 8 in the series so far. You know, the walks for Edinson Volquez, John, and you've watched him pitch for a decade now. It used to be a big issue for him. But starting last year in Pittsburgh under their fine pitching coach Ray Searage, he really turned the corner in that department. And this year, he posted the lowest walk rate of his career.
Well, he's definitely made the mechanical adjustment. You would expect a little bit of nerves here, but he's got a lot of moving parts, and they've confined a couple of those to at least get him closer to the strike zone and down. He has such movement on his fastball. As you see those numbers, he's improving on it every time he goes out and pitches. And today will not be one of those games he needs to fall back into that pattern.
He's behind Evan Gaddis, 2 balls and no strikes, with Rasmus off the bag at first. Stole only 2 bags during the regular season. On the ground to third. Moustakas to Zobrist. The relay back to Hosmer's not in time.
I'm telling you what, Gaddis can get down the line for a big lumberjack that looks like he can hit it 600 feet. Of course, well-documented amount of triples that he has had. This play right here, the throw, of course, Rasmus gets out of the way. Awfully close. See where Zobrist uses the bag to protect himself, and Colby goes on the left side. Of course, much discussion of that play has been talked about because of last night with the Mets and the Dodgers, but not a play here we need to talk about. Colby goes on the left side of the bag as he slides.
So 1 gone, a runner aboard now for Carlos Gomez, making his first start of the series. Big swing and a miss, and for a guy nursing a sore oblique, that's the kind of pass that can put you right back on the shelf, though Carlos seems no worse for the wear.
Big leg kick, good breaking ball, knuckle curve ball. Carlos always on the attack, always smiling and doing his thing, but Volquez will have nothing of it.
Gomez bunting, and it looks like he made contact with the baseball, and he's out.
Good idea with his speed and after taking that big swing, but the ball catches his leg. Last minute trying to get that ball and see how it deadens. It's right there off the left knee.
That scored as a putout unassisted for Sal Perez, and for a guy with all the tools of Carlos Gomez, John, he has been involved in a couple of really strange moments in this series. Picked off in the 9th inning in Game 2 at Kansas City, and then making contact with the ball out of the box here on a bunt attempt. So there are 2 gone now for Luis Valbuena, 1 for 7 so far in the series.
1 for 7, but playing third base like a champ, making some really nice plays defensively. Always has that home run power. Both him and Carter at one point under 200, double-digit home runs, and they've raised their average significantly.
Volquez out of the stretch again, and a wave and a miss by Valbuena. See the shift that the Royals employ with Zobrist out in the Beer League softball rover position.
But when a guy doesn't run as well and like to pull the ball, you've got time when you're that deep.
A ball and 2 strikes to Valbuena. 95 miles an hour on that fastball, which by design missed up and away. Chris Carter waits next. Should Valbuena have 2 out, 2 strike success here with a man aboard. And the 1-2. 2 balls and 2 strikes now.
That's much better. He kept his front shoulder in, did Volquez, trying to get the ball up, hoping and enticing a swing. Now what that does do is open up the ability to throw that knuckle curveball, so he could start this pitch up and rely on the break to get a swing and miss.
And a called strike 3. Edinson Volquez, 2nd strikeout of the afternoon, strands a base runner and keeps it scoreless in the Space City. A reminder, pick up your official caps, hoodies, jackets, and more. Celebrate with your favorite team at the MLB.com shop. You know what they sell here, which are pretty good, which I'm going to pick up on our way out of here. I'll buy you one if you want.
What do you got?
Houston Colt 45s gear.
Nice.
The vintage stuff. Dallas Keuchel back to work. It has been vintage Keuchel so far this afternoon with 3 strikeouts, stranding a couple of base runners. Alex Rios leads it off against him and bounces one out to the rookie shortstop Carlos Correa for out number 1. You know, there is nothing about this ballpark, John, and you can certainly speak to this, that would say a guy should really love to pitch here.
I agree.
Remember when the Astros moved into this building from the Astrodome for the 2000 season? The likes of the late Jose Lima and company on that pitching staff. I mean, they were shell-shocked for the first couple of months trying to pitch in this place.
Yeah, because look, every day that you have to pitch in this park, you have to be concerned with the right and left field corners of the ballpark, and when you make mistakes, those are short areas to go deep and to make a pitcher pay.
Here's Escobar now.
Obviously, if you keep the ball in the middle of the field, there's plenty of room. That's triple city, but that's where you have your center fielder can run it down. So if you have anything in the air to left field, miniature Fenway there with the scoreboard, you're going to have trouble. And so what Dallas Keuchel has done is, it doesn't matter where he pitches, but obviously he likes here 15-0. He just keeps the ball down, limits the hard contact and fly balls, and doesn't give up that many home runs.
Escobar lines to shallow center. Gomez had him played well for out number 2.
Well, StatCast powered by Amazon Web Services. You see right now the exit velocity that we showcased early in the open, 68 miles an hour, and this one's going to be 60, and that just results in a lot of easy ground balls. The stress level for that man when he's throwing those pitches is not that high, and certainly his defense not that high as well.
There's Ben Zobrist now with 2 gone. One of the 3 strikeout victims for Keuchel, first time through the order. As we mentioned, for Ben Zobrist in Kansas City for games 1 and 2, formerly Astros property, began his career after being drafted by the Astros. This could have been his home ballpark. Ben has really made his mark as a Tampa Bay Ray. And the acquisition by the Royals, applauded by everybody at the trade deadline, has really paid off for Kansas City. Of course, there isn't a single team in baseball that this guy wouldn't be a good fit with, given his versatility. He'll be taking his services to the open market as a free agent at season's end. I know a lot of folks around Kansas City would love to have him back. On the ground for Correa again. And an all-business third for Dallas Keuchel. This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of the Office of the Commissioner of Baseball and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without express written consent or Nolan Ryan's permission, whichever comes first.
Yep. Every time I see him, I'm in awe. The first pitch he threw out in Texas, about 91 miles an hour. Still can bring it.
Chris Carter leads things off in the Houston half of the 3rd. No score through a couple of innings so far. Into the bottom half of the 3rd for Carter, Castro, and Altuve.
Coming into this inning, Volk has thrown 15 fastballs, and his average velocity a tick under 95, 94.9 miles per hour.
Carter in the series, as he's able to check the swing, is 2 for 8. And just thinking back to how the regular season ended, he was one of the hottest Astros hitters. Final 15 games, led the majors in OPS, slugging, batting average, hit 6 home runs down the stretch. Out in front of a breaking ball that time. He is a player for whom, whether it was in Oakland or here in Houston, there is such a high power ceiling. It's been a series of adjustments for him throughout his career, and the Astros think that they've tapped into a pretty good one. Still 2-2.
Well, hitting well below 200 for most of the year. They sat him for a while. He's pretty much a non-factor for about 12, 13 games in a row, and he's made a mechanical adjustment, as you alluded to, that really has put him in September one of their hotter hitters.
The 2-2 to Carter is lined into left field, a base hit. Gordon plays it off the wall. Carter into second. The throw is there waiting for him, and Carter is out at second base. That's a 4-time Gold Glover out there who has chalked up more outfield assists than any other player since 2011. Alex Gordon gets his man here.
I mean, this is a huge play. He was playing for the carom, and it hit one of those where you would put a number for a score, and it deadens off the wall. But his ability to make the ball and pick it up and throw it right on the target. See how it deadens right there? Right in the air. Seeing this live, I didn't think he had a chance. Carter, not the most fleet of foot. See him coming out of the box. He's played here enough to know what could happen. Maybe he thought right there he had a sure double, and that would have cost him sliding into second. So maybe he thought it was automatic, and his gait changed.
Here's Jason Castro now. He falls behind 0-1. But Chris Carter thinking perhaps the game's first extra base hit. Instead, he runs into Alex Gordon out there.
As good of a job as Castro has been doing behind the plate with the best home ERA in all of baseball. This team, the Astros, has struggled at the plate.
Castro 0 for 6 with 3 strikeouts in the series so far. 1-1 to him from Edinson Volquez.
He's struggling coming down the stretch. A lot of times you get caught up in a series and what a guy has done. That's why 162 games usually equals it out.
And it's 1-2.
But his last 30 games coming into the season, he was hitting 146.
Top of the order, Jose Altuve waiting next. Scoreless last of the third. 1 out, bases empty after Alex Gordon's terrific throw from the left field corner. And a called strike 3.
This is that knuckle curveball. Starts up. He thinks it's a ball. Change of speed. Quick spin on the ball. I don't know what he could be asking him there.
Here's Jose Altuve now with 2 gone. A breaking ball starts him with a strike. So 10 batters faced by Edinson Volquez. 8 of them have been started with strike 1. Boy, he is right around the plate today. I mean, we're talking about a guy, John, who at one point led the American League in wild pitches. Led the National League in walks on one occasion. He is as locked on as you're going to see Edinson Volquez. He's been terrific today. The 0-2. And a called strike 3 taken by Jose Altuve. Boy, the inning started out with promise, but it ends with a 0 in the bottom half of the third. Welcome back to this Division Series telecast on MLB Network, presented by Geico, with John Smoltz and John Palmarosi, Matt Vasgersian here at Minute Maid Park in Houston. Scoreless through 3. And Dallas Keuchel back to work. Lorenzo Cain, Eric Hosmer, and Kendrys Morales in the Kansas City 4th.
I think Cain and Alex Rios have the best approach. If you're Dallas Keuchel, you're looking at your lineup card and you're going, those 2 guys have given me fits before. I'm going to change things up a little bit and not let them beat me.
A ball and a strike to Lorenzo Cain, who grounded to second base in his first try today.
Back-to-back changeup, slowing him up just a little bit. Cain obviously has power.
Big swing and a miss. Strikeouts and ground balls. That's been the story through the first 3. A couple of leadoff singles voided out by Keuchel in the first and second. It's been about it from the Kansas City lineup early today. 2 balls and 2 strikes. You know, the success of Dallas Keuchel doesn't really come in the strike zone. In fact, of his strikeouts during the regular season, and there were 216 of them, 80% of those came on pitches outside the strike zone. That was the highest rate in all of baseball. As Kane stays alive.
It's all because of perceived what the hitter thinks is a strike, and the movement takes it outside the strike zone. That's why down on each corner has the greatest chance for him to be successful, because it's starting over the plate to a right-hander away and then goes off the plate where you'll get your swing and misses. Same thing for a left-hander.
There's a pitch off the plate that Kane's able to foul away.
That's a perfect example. That pitch was easily 6 inches off of the plate, but when it came out of his hand and the change of speed made it look like that was something he had to go out after. That pitch is going to be a ball easy. When I say easy, as we would have seen it after the fact.
Still 2-2.
So what Dallas Keuchel has done is he repeats his mechanics flawlessly. He never gets out of rhythm, and he never forces his 2-seam fastball to do more than it's naturally going to do. But his complement of pitches along with that 2-seam make a hitter's nightmare to square up anything moving.
And I'm not sure how Lorenzo was able to even get a small piece of that ball to stay alive.
Well, what this would tell me is he's out over the plate, and now you got to make him think inside a little bit. This would be a perfect spot for an inside 2-seamer. You see the grip, the changeup away, so he's been able to cover now. It looked like that's what they were trying to do, and he fouls it off that way.
There have been a couple of really notably long plate appearances here. Sal Perez had a 9-pitch at bat against Keuchel back in the 2nd that resulted in a strikeout. And this next offering home to Lorenzo Cain will be number 11. Here is Keuchel's next 2-2 pitch. Cain swings and sends a drive to left that has no chance to stay in the park. Oh my! Lorenzo Cain with an absolute moonshot here in the Space City. 1-0 Kansas City.
Well, his approach and Alex Rios' approach, staying up the middle, fighting off the pitches, is a good approach that he's had against one of the best pitchers in the game, and he just showed it right there. Fought off all the pitchers' pitches and got to the one he wanted, a hanging slider.
Here's Eric Hosmer now. So on the 10th pitch of the at-bat, Lorenzo Cain gets his pitch and gets the Royals on the scoreboard this afternoon.
It's interesting when a guy is loaded up at the plate like he is. He's always looking to load up. His balance staying back. That's why the changeup is such a good pitch against him. But he was fouling off the plate away. Coming in off the plate was something you had to do to make him get off of those pitches.
Eric Hosmer green lights himself on 2-0, 2-1 now.
And Keuchel tried to come in with that slider, didn't bury it down where he could get it over the top swing and left it up for a rare home run.
This is the first time in the series that Kansas City has pushed across the first run. And it's 3 balls and a strike to Eric Hosmer. Doesn't happen very often that Dallas Keuchel gives up a home run here at Minute Maid Park.
Doesn't.
Just the 4th long ball given up here at home by a guy who is undefeated here at home. 4 during the regular season. Today's the 5th. And there's a strike for Hosmer to fill the count.
And that's going to cause some rumbling in the Kansas City. That's the pitch they can't afford if you're Kansas City for Keuchel to get. This is in the lower part of the strike zone below it. And of course, Hosmer, a big guy. Now he'll more apt to go after a pitch down there than take it.
Struck him out.
Just like that. What that does to a hitter, it affects his mind mentally. Knowing he thought he took ball 4, and then seeing the pitch in the same quadrant, realizing it just got called a strike, I got to go after it.
One gone now for Kendrys Morales. He singled on the first pitch he saw in the second. Takes a strike here. And Morales is shaking his head.
Those balls are down, which is a great sign for Keuchel. That's where you know you can go, it looks like, to get that extra inch or two.
Through Valbuena on into left field. And Morales is 2 for 2 this afternoon. Yeah, we'll see how that one's scored. Yeah, E5.
Ball hit firmly, but he could not stop it from going underneath the legs.
Big plate appearance now for Mike Moustakas, who is looking for his first base hit of the series. On a day that provides a really difficult matchup, Ned Yost told us before the game that Mike Moustakas is the key guy to get going today. Time is taken at first base as Morales resets himself at the bag.
So far, Dallas Keuchel hasn't given Moustakas anything away to hit that vacated hole.
That one bounces away from Castro. A potentially large wild pitch as it takes the double play off and moves a runner into scoring position with 1 away.
So when you're playing the shift and when you're going to attack the shift, you're going to pitch to the hitter so he does pull the baseball, and he pulls this sinker, speaking of pulling it into the ground, not really having much chance was Castro. So slow breaking balls, easier for the hitter to pull sinkers in on the hands. But now if he gets a mistake out over the plate, Moustakas has a free shot at shortstop.
Two and one. Salvador Perez waits on deck for Kansas City. The Royals are on the board here in the 4th on the Lorenzo Cain home run. Another runner in scoring position out there. Just their second of the game as Moustakas bounces that foul. The Royals didn't have a lot of opportunities through the first 14 or 15 innings of this series with runners in scoring position, but they would like to think that the series turned with the 2-run 6th inning in game 2. Last year's ALCS MVP starting the scoring today for Kansas City. And Moustakas wraps it softly to second for Altuve. 2 gone as Morales gets to third.
It's just amazing when you dive into a guy's year and see not only do these numbers back up the kind of year he's having with 2 strikes on a left-handed batter. 163 on his sinker, 059 on his slider. Against a right-handed batter, 167 on his sinker or 2-seam fastball, 068. So if he gets 2 strikes on you, you're pretty much at his mercy, and you're not going to get too many hits. Just saw a big one though out of Cain.
First pitch to Salvador Perez. His line just fouled into the left field corner.
The last 3 months of his year, Dallas Keuchel, as we see the average of 2 outs and runners in scoring position, he's one of the best as Perez. He's throwing many more sliders the last 3 months. He's got feel, touch, and command of that pitch.
Ball and a strike to Salvador Perez. The three-time All-Star has strikeout victim his first time today. Popped up, headed for the seats, and settling in as a foul ball. It's 1-2. This place would have been loud today without the inflatable giveaways. Hand those things out to a few thousand friends and it gets really loud. Two and two to Perez. Dallas Keuchel, as we talked about, likes to make quick work of you. In spots like this, he did not have the kind of success that you would assign to a 20-game winner. Opponents hit 280 against him with runners in scoring position and 2 out. And believe it or not, that was one of the highest averages in the American League during the season. 2 plate appearances for Sal Perez, 2 full counts. He struck out the first time. Salvador Perez has really given Dallas Keuchel his money's worth.
Well, it's just the theme of the Kansas City Royals, the way they work a lineup offensively. They have a mindset that they're going to put the ball in play, put productive at bats. It's going to have a carryover effect later in the game. They don't swing wildly every single time they come up, and certainly they don't hit a ton of home runs. So they've gained more confidence, obviously, going through last year. This environment won't rattle them as much as maybe a first comer to the playoffs.
The 30th pitch of the inning by Keuchel misses inside, ball 4. A guy with impeccable control against a guy who it is virtually impossible to walk. And we get a base on balls here to put runners at the corners with 2 gone.
This is why I was so excited to watch this game, not only from a great seat, but as a pitcher, seeing the mastery of Dallas Keuchel against the strategy of the Kansas City Royals, what they are in their makeup. Who's going to execute, who's going to last longer, and I think it's playing out as I would have expected. Long at bats, get into the pitch count, work the favorable counts if you can, and they got lucky enough to hit 1 mistake and have a lead 1-0. But that's what this cat and mouse game, when you get ready for a game as a pitcher in the postseason, and you go through video and you go through with your catcher, you know what they're capable of doing. You just have to expose or get them off their game and get quick outs. Dallas Keuchel hasn't got as many quick outs as he would have liked. Pitch count getting up.
Here's Alex Gordon now with runners in the corners. Gordon already a major part of the storyline this afternoon. His big play in left, cutting down Chris Carter, trying for an extra base in the previous inning. And Gordon's in front, 2-0.
As a pitcher, when you get into these innings, you're not totally fatigued, obviously, but you want to stay away from the 30-plus pitches in an inning because those things take their toll. 38 in the first 3 innings.
Gordon sprays a drive out to left center. This will be playable for Rasmus to retire the side. But a deep pitch count and a home run have tipped the scales in favor of the visitors. 1-0 Kansas City. StatCast is powered by Amazon Web Services. See more of MLB's revolutionary tracking technology at MLB.com/StatCast. Well, this afternoon's game is the 15th postseason game ever played here at Minute Maid Park. Lorenzo Cain hit one up there a little while ago, and that means that 13 of the 15 postseason games played here have seen at least one home run hit. George Springer leads things off in the bottom half of the fourth. The only two, and this is why I bring this up, Mr. Smoltz, the only two postseason games ever played here that did not involve a home run were the World Series finale in 2005 against the White Sox and a game you pitched in the 2001 NLDS.
Well, I did give one up in one of those other games when I was closing to Vinny Castilla, and it's still going.
That service station pump marks the number of home runs. I know it sounds redundant, but stay with me. Home runs here in this ballpark.
The reason I know it's still going, it's the only pitch in my career I threw at 100 miles an hour, and Vinny, a dead fastball hitter, hit it well over the train tracks.
Here's Carlos Correa now with one away.
So far with Volquez, his secondary pitches, as you've seen that train, it was moved over a little bit further to the left for Vinny's. His secondary pitches have been very good, and you're going to need that against this Astros lineup. He's mixing and matching really well with his fastball velocity and the change of speeds. Those are two variances. His range is from 80 miles an hour to 96.
A ball and a strike to Carlos Correa, lined to third in his first at bat today. To 2-1 now. Correa dinged himself up in game 2 on a foul tip that he took off the right knee. And though it didn't look fun and though he was in some pain, there was never a question in terms of his availability here for game 3. Went through a full workout yesterday and is deemed 100%, or at least playably 100%.
Well, we got a chance to meet him for the first time, at least I did, and I was so impressed by his outlook of what he thinks about baseball and his fact that he's been very disciplined. He wants to stay at shortstop his whole career. As a taller shortstop, many people think he's going to be moved off that position because he's going to get bigger and bulkier, and to him, he doesn't want that to happen, so he's taking everything he can to do that. Stay there.
And a called strike 3. That's 5 this afternoon for Edinson Volquez. J.P. Morosi had a chance to chat with his manager, Ned Yost, between innings.
Ned, Lorenzo came playing through that bone bruise on his right knee, but what an at-bat there against Keuchel.
No, that was a great at-bat. Kept fighting off pitches and finally got a pitch that he can handle and put it up in the seats, but it was a phenomenal at-bat.
Ned, Volquez so far has given you your best start of this series. What have you liked about his outing so far today?
Well, one, he got through the first inning. You know, we haven't been able to do that. But it was evident early on that both pitchers got their A game, so that's good to see.
Thanks, Ned.
Thank you.
Here's Colby Rasmus now with 2 away. I mean, you've seen Edinson Volquez pitch a lot over the years, and I know you've talked about his secondary pitches. I mean, it just all seems to be coming together for a veteran starter in this postseason opportunity.
I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but I think he's learned a lot from his previous 2 experiences that you talked about. Although he was not on the side of winning the game, he's used to pitching up against the hottest pitcher going or extraordinary circumstances. So he was the hottest pitcher for the Pirates. I know everybody complained when he pitched that game. He was their hottest pitcher.
2-0. Edinson Volquez has gone through a lot. I mean, this is a guy who, in addition to going through Tommy John surgery, came up as a young phenom with the Rangers, signed as a free agent out of the Dominican Republic, broke in big league Texas in 2005. 2 years later, traded to the Reds for Josh Hamilton. Had an all-star season in 2008. There's a strike to Rasmus. But as we mentioned, Tommy John surgery, at one point had to serve a 50-game PED suspension. Turned down a 4-year extension to stay in Cincinnati. And then kind of had to sing for his supper a few years. He rolled the dice saying no to that long-term deal. Kicked around between the Dodgers and Padres, and as we mentioned, really didn't get it all together until going to Pittsburgh last year, and he has been a terrific addition in Kansas City. Take a look at the numbers with the Pirates and Royals the last 2 seasons.
Well, he always had the stuff, as you mentioned early on. Control is just the biggest contributor to that high ERA and under 500 record.
Still full to Rasmus.
Fastballs here. Wouldn't be surprised to see him go back to the breaking ball or something off speed. See what Perez puts down. Nobody on. He won't go through a series of signs unless he shakes. Fastball in. He shakes. There's the curveball.
Yeah, they want to roll him over again. The 2-out base is empty. 1-0 Kansas City, last of the 4th. The payoff pitch home, and Rasmus fouls this one away. You know, as was the case in Game 1, the visitors taking an early lead, and there's still plenty of noise and energy here, but it's not what it would have been if the score was reversed.
You can imagine their confidence coming into this game, the crowd that is, knowing the man is 15-0. I'd like to see a lead.
Fine plate appearance by Colby Rasmus there. He's walked twice this afternoon.
Yeah, that was great. That's a frustrating one for a pitcher because you know he's hot. You know you got to pay attention to his spots and stretches of where he's hitting the ball, but you also think he's going to be a little more free swinging being hot. He hasn't swung at the first pitch yet, and he didn't swing wildly when 2 strikes on him in that full count. So Colby's in a different time zone right now, feeling good at the plate.
Here's Evan Gattis now, 2 for 9 so far in 2+ games in the series at the DH spot. 2 out, runner at first. And a breaking ball starts him with a strike. Sal Perez wants to make sure no mistakes are made to the Astros leading a home run and RBI threat.
Yeah, these situations call for more attention to detail, more patience. Pivotal game here. Cannot afford to have any lapses or any mistakes in your line of communication or your thinking.
Swing and a miss, and it's 0-2. We mentioned Gattis as being the Astros leading home run and RBI man this year in his first year in Houston. Certainly didn't start out that way. Month of April, he was hitting 164 with 5 extra base hits and looked like the change to the American League was going to be the undoing of it. 25 home runs and 79 driven in the rest of the way, and the season-long line looks real good. A wave and a miss by him here, however, and that 2-out walk is left stranded on Edinson Volquez's 6th strikeout of the afternoon. This Division Series telecast on MLB Network is presented by Taco Bell. Sometimes you gotta live Moss. And sponsored in part by Esurance, official sponsor of Major League Baseball. And by Scion. Premium standard features that actually come standard. Weird, right? And a fly ball from Alex Rios into the right field corner. That makes for out number 1 to start the top of the 5th. Back with John Smoltz, J.P. Morosi, Matt Vasgersian. A lone run this afternoon, and that came on the Lorenzo Cain homer that started the 4th. Dallas Keuchel, as advertised, saved that 1 pitch to Cain, and perhaps that much better has been Edinson Volquez on this day in Houston. Here's the top of the order, Alcides Escobar, who takes a breaking ball for a strike.
Well, just what the doctor ordered, 1 pitch out for Dallas Keuchel. I don't think pitches are going to be an issue for him as far as when he comes out. He's proven not only is he durable, he is their best pitcher, and he's got to give this team at least 7 innings to shorten that bullpen. If you shorten the bullpen for the Houston Astros, you got a great chance of winning.
Great play by the Gold Glover Keuchel. And there are 2 away.
And speaking of shortening the bullpen, of course, nobody can do that better than the Kansas City Royals. 1 hopper back. Correa had his back if he didn't make the play, but you mentioned his Gold Glove. He finishes in such a good position. He handles the mound as good as just about anybody.
Here's Ben Zobrist now with 2 out and the bases empty. When Zobrist came over from Oakland, it was as one of the high-profile midseason ads that the critics looked at on paper and said, wow, it's tough not to install the Royals as prohibitive favorites in the American League. Zobrist lines that one into the corner. It'll rattle around as Rasmus tracks it. Zobrist into second with a 2-out double.
Zobrist able to stay back. He didn't hit it great. He hit it off the end of the bat, but he was able to get enough of it down the line on an off-speed pitch. He's got what I call the quick snatch of that bat, that he can really flip it quickly down each line, batting right or left-handed. He can go get him, what I call hook the ball to either line of the baseball field. And you see that's perfect placement and a runner in scoring position with 2 outs.
And it brings back Lorenzo Cain with a runner in scoring position, perhaps most importantly. Cain's home run the difference early on this afternoon. Ben Zobrist already with 5 hits in this series.
Because the Royals do such a good job, even their left-handers, with a base open, one would think, just walk him. The guy hit a home run. He's had a good approach off of you, some success off of you, and that's what they're going to do. So I can't finish my thought. But the left-handers, the left-handers do so well, and Hosmer is not one of those guys that is affected as adversely as most left-handers against a guy whose slider is so devastating. So, nonetheless, be a man on first and second.
It does make sense. Lefties are 0 for 6 today against Keuchel. But let's go back to the Cain home run that led off the 4th, and as we mentioned, has been the difference so far.
Statcast powered by Amazon Web Services. You can see that this ball is going to leave any ballpark, and you see the exit velocity at 104. That's usually a good sign that the ball is going to travel a long distance. 423 feet.
Big chance for Eric Hosmer now. 2 out, 2 on, 1-0 Kansas City. Hosmer hitless so far today.
First pitch, very important.
And it's a first pitch strike.
Because what that does is that sets up the at-bat, either puts the hitter in a little defensive approach. Because he's so tough on left-handers, he didn't try and sneak in a fastball, and he got ahead with a breaking ball. that's the call that was earlier in at bat against Hosmer. That 3-1 count got him a strike. This time he had the patience to stay off of it, got rewarded with a ball. Similar location, similar pitch, below the strike zone, a ball.
Well, that is such a tough take, especially as you mentioned, considering the last at bat. And it's a ball and a strike to Hosmer. Eric Hosmer coming off a regular season that saw him hit a career high 18 home runs, drove in 93. He was a monster in last year's postseason run for Kansas City. An OPS of over 950 in 15 games. 2 out, 2 on for him here, a ball and 2 strikes. Dallas Keuchel able to strand a pair after the home run in the 4th, and trying to do the same here as you take a look at the damage that Hosmer wrought last postseason.
He stays on the ball so well. In gives him a little bit of trouble because of the big swing. We already saw him reach a pitch away and get a big hit at home. 2-strike pitch.
And once again, Keuchel pitches out of a jam. The middle of the afternoon, still 1-0 Kansas City. There is more postseason action coming up later tonight. The Blue Jays are down 2-0 with their backs against the wall. Can they stave off elimination in Arlington? Find out 8 Eastern on FS1 for Game 3 between the Jays and the Rangers back here in Houston. 1-0 Kansas City as the Astros send up Carlos Gomez to lead things off in the bottom of the 5th. Gomez, Valbuena, and Carter against Edinson Volquez. Carlos Gomez tried to bunt his way aboard in the 2nd and was called out as he made contact with the baseball getting out of the box. Takes a breaking ball for a strike, and it's 1-2.
Volquez has done a great job in not creating any kind of excitement for the fans and or the Astros, really limiting the traffic on the base and limiting with their rhythm at the plate.
Big swing and a miss to finish off Gomez. And that's 7 this afternoon for Edinson Volquez.
Well, when you look at the way and how he throws each pitch, let's look at the pitch grips. And the fastball is going to be traditional 4-seam. You see the 2-seam fastball. That means he's got his hands on the sweet spot there. And then see the knuckle? That's why it's called a knuckle curveball, in which he's throwing that pitch with high spin and good change of speed. And then the traditional changeup just off the 2-seam fastball gives the same rotation as a fastball, but then the speed difference obviously messes with the hitter's timing.
Here's Luis Valbuena now, a strikeout victim back in the 2nd. Valbuena is one of the 4 Astros to have homered in the past against Edinson Volquez. Those are numbers you need to take with a grain of salt when you consider that Volquez has only faced the Astros once in the last 3 years. We talked about his undefeated record against Houston, but a lot of that success came against a very different Astros team. This is no longer close to the team that had the worst record in a 4-year span in the divisional era. And now Volquez has fallen behind. It's 3 balls and no strikes.
3-0 to this guy, and Chris Carter is not an automatic take. This ball's down. A good take at this pitch. Wasn't going to be able to do much with it. So you can't just lay it in there on a 3-0 pitch.
3-1. That's the first 3-ball count that Volquez has gone to anybody not named Rasmus. And there's ball 4 to Valbuena. We talked about the turnaround in Houston. It's worth discussing and illustrating a little deeper. Last 5 seasons, you can see the turnaround there, and between 2011 and 2014, the Astros had the worst record combined in the divisional era since 1969.
Well, and the reward was getting some of the draft choices that they were able to acquire, and obviously they did a great job bringing in some young players, and the ability to develop them now here in this moment is why they're here.
One out, one on now for the first baseman, Chris Carter. Carter has the only hit of the afternoon against Edinson Volquez, and there's another one for him into the left field corner. Houston's got something cooking for the first time all day against Edinson Volquez.
Well, this time he made sure he was going to get to second, but the adjustment he has made with his hands allows him to get to this pitch where before he couldn't get to this pitch. He's so strong. He doesn't have a lot of moving parts, but you see that pitch is not a bad pitch. Stands up after he hits it, gets his hands through the ball, and I mean the ball jumps off of his bat. This time right here, he's like, you know what? I'm not taking any chances this time. Stand-up double.
Well, on a day when his teammates have gone 0 for 12, Chris Carter's done his part. He's got both of the Astros hits today. And now it's going to be up to Jason Castro and company. Castro has had a rough series, 0 for 7 with 4 strikeouts. First time all day that Houston's put together a threat with multiple base runners aboard.
Show you how hard he hit that ball. Exit velocity 109. Big spot here, obviously, because Altuve up next, and all he does is seem to get base hits. Going to limit the damage. Volquez will trade an out for a run if it's hit to the right side of the infield.
Breaking balls in for a strike, 1-1.
But this is the area where the ball club will be tested in Houston and their ability to make contact at the right time. They swing and miss a lot, which they also hit a lot of solo home runs. But these are the times you can't afford to swing and miss. You have to execute. You got to give yourself up at all costs to make contact to at least get the game tied.
One and two. Jason Castro was not particularly fond of the strike zone when he was rung up in the third, and now he finds himself behind a ball and 2 strikes on a pitch he thought was low.
But he's been on the other side where his pitcher has gotten this exact pitch, and it looked like he caught the bottom tier of the strike zone. So he's kind of in a no-win situation as a hitter, because he's going to want his pitcher to get that same pitch. So what his brain is telling him, anything low now, I would expect changeup down or curveball down to get him aggressive in the zone to maybe swing outside of the strike zone.
As we've talked about a lot in the series, the Astros are not necessarily a station-to-station offense. Nothing fancier than a base hit needed here to deliver a lead. Bounce back up the middle and through. Jason Castro's first base hit of the series is a big one.
Right idea, bad execution, better by Castro. Volquez knew it as soon as he released it, hoping that he could knock it down, but this pitch, you see how it stayed up? Castro stayed in the box and went right up the middle. Watch out, first pitch too. Good chance for the pitching coach to come out, calm down Volquez, get him focused back on Altuve, because Altuve is going to be swinging as soon as that ball comes near anywhere where he likes it.
Here's Jose Altuve now with 2 runs in, a runner at first, and only 1 away. Back to Jason Castro for a moment. His batting average this year with runners in scoring position was 141, the second lowest in all of Major League Baseball. He has not come through with a bigger hit like that under these circumstances at any point. A ground ball to shortstop. Escobar to Zobrist. Back to Hosmer, and they get them both. Not before the Astros can grab their first lead of the afternoon. At the end of 5, it's 2-1 Houston as we send you back to the MLB Network studios to check in with Brian Kenny.
Welcome to this T-Mobile studio update. I'm Brian Kenny. Ruben Tejada out for the postseason. The Mets shortstop had his leg broken by Chase Utley of the Dodgers last night in a play that turned the game to the Dodgers. Major League Baseball's Joe Torre says he was concerned that the slide was late, and they will look into the possibility of disciplinary action. The Mets replacing Tejada with infielder Matt Reynolds on their Division Series roster. Other playoff injury news, Blue Jays reliever Brett Cecil will not need surgery on his torn calf muscle. He is still out, though, for the rest of the playoffs. You can tag your posts with hashtag SwingDataData, and T-Mobile will keep the conversation going data strong all season long.
Non-stop action, heart-pounding excitement, historic performances. Don't miss the 2015 postseason. Go to MLB.com/postseason for a full schedule. And as has been the case all series long between Houston and Kansas City, Game 3 has been a good one. 2-1 Astros. Home team grabbing its first lead in the bottom of the 5th. So to the 6th inning we go for Kendrys Morales. He'll be followed by Mike Moustakas and Salvador Perez. Dallas Keuchel working with a lead, which generally spells good things for Houston. In 25 games when he has any kind of a lead, the Astros are 19-2. Check that number. It's Keuchel who is 19-2 himself. The Astros as a team went 21-4 in those games. Morales trying to hold up and apparently does so successfully. It's 2 balls and 2 strikes.
Well, as you mentioned, when his team is ahead, he's got a 2.43 ERA, and that's 107 innings worth. So that's a jolt of adrenaline for a starting pitcher going as good as he is at home.
They appeal that check, and again Morales was able to hold up, so it's a full count.
The one thing for the Kansas City Royals as you watch this, a lot more motion than actual swinging of the bat. 90+ pitches already.
Bounced over Keuchel. Correa's got it, and it turns into a rather routine out number 1.
Yeah, wasn't so routine on the in-between hop, but great hands by Correa. He knows that Morales doesn't run very good, so he's got plenty of time, but the in-between hop that he was able to get fluidly. See the range that he covers. He comes over, and that little hop could have stayed down. You never know the transition when it goes from the grass and right there to the clay. He makes a really, really good play.
Ground balls and strikeouts. That's the game plan for Dallas Keuchel. There have only been 4 Royals balls hit in the air and one of them happened to be the Kane home run. Here's Moustakas now with one gone. When you look at Dallas Keuchel's 20-8 record, that's rocked into the corner and a fair ball down into right field. Moustakas on his way to second. So Mike Moustakas has his first base hit of this postseason, and he's in scoring position now with one gone.
You see the location. He was able to keep this ball fair by pulling his hands in, rocking it down in the corner. If this ball deflects back to Springer, it would be a much closer play, but it was rattled around a little bit, allowed Moustakas to get to second base.
So now Salvador Perez, who, as we mentioned, has really given Keuchel his money's worth at the plate. Two very long at-bats.
Castro has been known for being able to steal some strikes with his framing, but Mike Everett is consistent on the pitch away. Even though Castro makes it look like a strike, bringing it back over the corner, the pitch is off the plate. Down is the only area of the strike zone to where Mike has been a little lenient.
Jason Castro is going to try that appeal down to first often, as he has, and Ron Culpa on each occasion this inning down in the first base umpiring lane has said the hitter is held up. 2 balls and no strikes to Salvador Perez. A drive out to deep center field. That's moving Gomez back towards Towles Hill. Tagging up at second and advancing is Mike Moustakas on out number 2. There's discussion of the Astros doing away with Towles Hill at some point, though there's really no end date that's been clearly defined. I mean, you really got to get a hold of one to hit it 437 and then hope it doesn't hit the flagpole, which is in play.
Well, in all these situations where runner's been on, he has started off the left-handers with something off speed.
Here's Alex Gordon looking for Kansas City's first base hit with the runner in scoring position. The Royals are 0 for 5 in that capacity here, and it's 0-1.
Threw a nasty sinker, and it's so hard for viewers at home to recognize. Well, it doesn't look like much. It's not 90 miles an hour, but to the hitter, the late movement is everything.
You know, getting back to Keuchel's record, as we were about to before the Moustakas double, 20-8, you could easily make a case for Keuchel being a 23-24 win pitcher this year. He had 3 losses where he pitched at least 7 innings and gave up 3 or fewer runs. There were a couple of clunkers in there, one to Kansas City, one to the Rangers. But through the course of 33 starts, he was about as consistent as anybody in baseball. And now Gordon's down to his last strike here.
I mean, that is just straight nasty. That ball to the hitter starting about just above the thigh, above the knee, ending up down and in, and just absolutely tying him up. The split second that you have as a hitter to decide on what that pitch is going to do is not enough for the movement of Dallas Keuchel.
Runner at third with 2 gone. Good block by Castro to keep that ball in front of him.
Well, even if Kansas City is not ahead, they have done everything you could do to this point to make Dallas Keuchel work. Throwing a lot of pitches. 101 pitches, and we're here in the 6th.
These are such tough takes. I mean, you watch Keuchel's work on Tuesday at the wild card game against the Yankees, who went 1 of 9 on pitches outside the strike zone. And it's just, for the Royals to take pitches to work as deep into these counts as they have is a small victory in and of itself.
Sinker in is what I would anticipate. They're going away.
Got him to swing and miss. Moustakas left stranded. Keuchel holds the lead in the 6th. What's your favorite baseball memory? Share your favorite moments using hashtag MLB Memory Bank and view the best baseball memories all in one place. That's bankofamerica.com/MLB Memory Bank. George Springer leads things off in the home 6 with a drive into center that Lorenzo Cain can't quite finish on. First pitch stand-up double for George Springer. That would have been a borderline miraculous play by the Kansas City center fielder.
Tremendous closing speed. We talked about center field and all the room you have from right to left. He gets a great break on this ball, and as soon as he gets to it right here, I think he's got it. He didn't quite have to dive to catch it, but he was in between, and that little backhand in the middle of kind of no man's land stand up almost closes it, but doesn't quite get it done.
Lorenzo Cain stands out as one of the best defensive center fielders in baseball. 55 runs saved since 2012. That's the 3rd highest total in the American League. Regardless of the metric, he comes up as one of the best. Here's Carlos Correa now with a runner at 2nd to lead things off here in the home 6th.
Shaking all the dirt from the warning track on that slide.
A strike on the corner, and it's a ball and a strike now. JP, we've talked about some of the players in this series who were at less than 100%. Lorenzo Cain had been one of them.
Yes, Matt, and Cain told me recently he feels that bone bruise on his knee more when he is running than at the plate, so maybe a slight factor there in not quite getting to that baseball.
Correa puts it in play to the right side. What a fine at-bat. Kid's 21 years old. That's not going to make any highlight reels, but it does not go without the notice of his teammates, most of whom are much older men.
Yeah, I'm telling you, this guy's a complete package. He knows how to play the game. He studies to play the game. He knows there is no way you hit the ball to right side unless you give yourself up. That pitch inside out, it's a lot easier to do when you give yourself up. It looks like Ned may be looking to bring in that bullpen.
Edinson Volquez cruised through the first 4, allowing just 1 base hit. He gave up 2 runs on 2 hits in the 5th. And he's going to be able to stick around here to go a little bit deeper still with the runner at 3rd and 1 away.
Well, what he's going to do is probably walk this next batter and play for the double play. With Gaddis being on deck, that seems to be the option that Ned wants to go with in that quick visit.
This will be the 3rd time that Rasmus has walked, the first of the 3 intentional walks. The first intentional walk of the 3, I should say. And it'll set up runners at the corners with 1 gone, as John mentioned, for Evan Gaddis.
So let's go look at what you have to do to get your team in a better situation and give yourself up. Correa set up ready and had this in his mind the whole time. And here's the pitch down, and he goes with the pitch to knock his runner to third. You can see the whole time he knows he's executed what he wanted to do, and not a lot of players at his age have everything going for him as if he was 31 or 32 years old.
So here's Evan Gattis now. He's hitless 0 for 2 today. A couple of hits for him in the series. He was able to beat out being doubled up in the second. And here he is with runners at the corners, 1 out in the 6th. You saw Danny Duffy up in the bullpen for Kansas City. Been a completely different story here for Volquez once he got to the 5th inning. After Gattis, it's Gomez, then the left-handed hitting Luis Valbuena. The better changeup this year for Volquez, the better secondary pitches in general. Part of the reason why he was able to induce a top 10 ground double play total of 20. And as John's talked about, he throws that change more often this year than he has in each of the last few seasons. And he's fallen behind Gattis now 3-0.
Well, even if he loses Gattis, his plan doesn't get any better because doubling up Gomez is a lot harder than it would be in Gattis. 3-0 count. A lot of the Astros have the green light. Let's see if he does here.
Springer and Rasmus aboard with 1 gone. The 3-0. A green light that swung on and missed.
It's a little confusing. 3-0 swing by Gattis, almost as if he was trying to shoot the ball to the right side right there as he's looking that way. Not what you would think of as a 3-0 swing. You're thinking of seats somewhere. Fair.
That fastball that Volquez just threw Gattis was his biggest velocity of the day at 96. And now he's back to a full count, 3-2. Another 96-mile-an-hour fastball.
And another, what looked like, trying to go to right field.
Springer doubled to start the inning. Correa moved him over with the ground ball to the right side. Rasmus intentionally walked. And now a full count to Evan Gattis. Here is the payoff pitch. Swing and a miss. He got him to chase. 8 strikeouts for Edinson Volquez this afternoon.
That's not one of the better at bats for Gattis. Just didn't look like he was tracking the ball very well, and not in typical fashion. Looked like he was down 0-2 with that swing instead of 3-2. Sometimes you want to get it done so badly that it can work against you. And that was an indication where the Astros desperately could have used some contact, but Gomez has a chance to pick up his teammate.
Carlos Gomez has had a very unusual afternoon. He was called out after making contact with a bunt attempt out of the batter's box in the second, punched out in the 5th. A swing and a line shot back up the middle, a base hit. 3-1 Houston.
That's how you pick up your teammate right there. Ned's going to go get the lefty.
Edinson Volquez so close to getting out of a tight spot. And Carlos Gomez, in his own inimitable style, is able to send Springer home with the third run of the day for the Astros and send Ned Yost into his bullpen. A pitching change. We'll be right back. A couple of changes with a run in, 2 away, and runners aboard here in the last of the 6th. Danny Duffy enters on the Hartford pitching change, taking over for Edinson Volquez. And A.J. Hinch counters with a pinch hitter. Marwin Gonzalez to swing the bat. Pinch hitting for the left-handed hitter Luis Valbuena. And Gonzalez wastes no time, pops up on the first offering. Escobar has it to retire the side. 2 left stranded, 1 more for Houston on the tally, however, at the end of 6. It's now 3-1 Astros. Official caps, hoodies, jackets, and more. Celebrate with your favorite team at the MLB.com shop. Dallas Keuchel back to work, top of the 7th inning. He'll get the bottom of the Royals order. Alex Rios followed by the leadoff man Alcides Escobar, and then Ben Zobrist. Marwin Gonzalez, after pinch hitting in the bottom of the 6th, he stays out there defensively at third for Luis Valbuena. And it's a ball and a strike to Rios.
Depending how this inning goes with the pitch count that he has, this is pretty much it for Dallas Keuchel. So trying to give one more strong inning and then turning it over to the bullpen.
The only starter in Major League Baseball to complete 7 innings more often than Dallas Keuchel this year was Clayton Kershaw. You can see that pitch count over 100. Ball and 2 strikes, the count to Rios. Pretty good evolution for a guy who just a couple of years ago people were calling Keuchel. We didn't even know how to pronounce his name. And now it is a household name and one of the most beloved in the city of Houston. He's got his own corner.
Well, he owns the corners on the plate, that's for sure. So the corner is in the stadium for his fans, but the corner of the plate is exactly where he lives.
Dallas Keuchel debuted in 2012. He was a 7th rounder back in 2009. Left the University of Arkansas after his junior year and really struggled in his first couple of seasons in the big leagues. 16 starts in his debut year, had an ERA in the 5s, more walks than strikeouts. Not much of an improvement the following year, an ERA over 5, a 6-10 record. And there's ball 4 to Rios. It wasn't until the 2014 season that's when the light went on. A winning record, 5 complete games. That was the most in the American League. And then this year, you know how it started with April Pitcher of the Month honors, start of the All-Star game. First player in Major League history to finish a season with an undefeated home record and at least 15 wins. Dallas Keuchel is one of the game's best. Here's Alcides Escobar now. And Escobar looking bunt is behind 0-1.
Well, it's pretty strong company when your team feels about you the way they do about Dallas Keuchel. Same thing with the Cubs and Jake Arrieta. 2 pivotal series game 3 that each team is going to rely on the, in this case, left arm and the right arm of Arrieta as that swing game that puts you in a great position to win the series.
Escobar out in front and now behind 0-2. Escobar opened the game with a first pitch base hit. And it gave us a little insight. At least it allowed us some license to speculate on what the Royals' approach may be. It's an approach that so far has netted just the 1 run It came on Lorenzo Cain's home run in the 4th. And I don't think there's anything wrong with the approach. I mean, look, there are guys out there. You can know what's coming. You can gear up with the right approach at the plate. But sometimes the guy that's 60 feet 6 inches away is just better than you are. And that's been the story with Dallas Keuchel virtually all year long. Two and two. We talked about Keuchel making his debut in 2012. It's a great story, and his parents are here today. His mom, Teresa, who works as a cardiovascular scheduler at a hospital in Tulsa, she had a double ear infection the day Dallas got called up. So he called his mom to tell her that he was going to the big leagues, and she couldn't hear a word he said. What was that? You're going where? I don't understand a thing he's saying.
Big pitch, obviously, 3-2. They've taken some really good takes on pitches that would be aggressive swings.
Bounce to first for Carter. He'll do it himself. That advances Rios to second with one gone.
Well, Carter looks right away to second. He could have realized what an easier play it would have been to get the lead runner. I don't know what Rios was doing. He kind of just looked back thinking maybe that was going to be the case and stay away from. I don't know what he was thinking, but he got the second.
So now it's Zobrist, who has had a terrific series. 5 for 11 with an RBI and a stolen base. You know, this postseason has been defined so far by staff aces going deep into ball games. We saw it yesterday in that Mets-Dodgers game. We saw it in Game 1, Mets-Dodgers as well, with Clayton Kershaw and Jacob deGrom. We're seeing it here with Keuchel as he is well over the 110 pitch mark. In fact, this postseason, through only 11 games played, there have been 8 starts eclipse the 110 pitch mark. In last year's entire postseason, many more games, it only happened 6 times. Zobrist bunting. Castro does it himself. Throw to first is in time to get him.
Well, obviously he's bunting for a base hit, trying to catch everybody off guard, and unfortunately he wasn't able to get this ball down the third base line. With Cain coming up, it may do it for Keuchel, but nonetheless he wasn't able to get on base.
118 pitches from Dallas Keuchel this afternoon, and it's not an automatic yet. The crowd loves the decision to keep the ace out there. So does mom and dad, apparently.
Well, the focus here has got to be keeping the ball down.
I know Dallas Keuchel's probably rationalizing it this way, that he's either going to have a lot of rest if the Astros don't get out of this series, or he's going to have enough rest if the Astros move on to the ALCS. Either way, he's got one more hitter. A ball and no strikes to Lorenzo Cain.
When you get to this part of the game, location becomes more of your concentration and energy. The pitches are going to be the pitches. You have to grind harder on making location not beat you. So he knows this is probably his last hitter, so location becoming the priority over stuff.
2-1 to Kane.
In other words, earlier in the game, you can get away with adrenaline and your movement and not perfect location.
Jacob deGrom threw 121 pitches in Game 1 of the NLDS against the Dodgers. Dallas Keuchel's next will be the most thrown by a starter this postseason. 2-2.
Dallas Keuchel pretty stoic, in control, but I would imagine if he's able to get this next batter out, you may see a little emotion coming off the mound. What will they decide to go with? Change up away, fastball away. Change up. Away but up.
Houston bullpen's been hot for a while now. They've got Tony Sipp and Will Harris up. It'll be Sipp if Kane can get aboard. Swing and a miss. Stab ace. He struck him out. The throw is there waiting for him, and Carter is out at second base. Kane swings and sends a drive to left that has no chance to stay in the park. Jason Castro's first base hit of the series is a big one. Seventh inning stretch in Houston, and the Astros hanging on to a 2-run lead. Dallas Keuchel, one of the stories here this afternoon. 7 innings, big time pitch count. In fact, the most pitches in a postseason game in the last couple of years. A home run by Lorenzo Cain, all the Royals have been able to muster so far. And when it looked like Edinson Volquez was going to have Keuchel's number and perhaps outdo him by that much, it is the all-star left-hander and possibly the Cy Young Award winner in the American League this year, who shines just a little bit brighter.
It's been an unbelievable battle. I mean, 120-some pitches to a lineup that is stingy. The brief 1-0 lead, Volquez was doing his best. But now it's up to the bullpen, seeing if the Astros offense can help out the bullpen, give them some breathing room. More than 2 runs.
So Danny Duffy continues. He threw 1 pitch in the 6th inning and got out of any further trouble as he popped out Marwin Gonzalez. Chris Carter, Jason Castro, and Jose Altuve against him here. Carter's had a nice day. A couple of base hits. He has scored a run. Swing and a drive to left, and that one is gone.
Carter doesn't need much movement, just needs his hands to be in the right spot. And he uses that velocity and his strength to absolutely clobber a home run.
Jason Castro now at 1-1. I mean to tell you, he doesn't hit any cheapies. Remember a postseason lineup that had that much thump in the 8 hole? That's the number 8 hitter, John.
Yeah, the only team that comes to mind is the Cleveland Indians back in '95. They were loaded. A few Hall of Famers on that lineup, but you're right. I mean, you're talking about that kind of pressure on a pitcher.
Castro with the drive into the opposite field. Gordon has a chance to make a catch on this ball.
Let me give you a little insight to why maybe Chris Carter's having the success of late. It's all about where the barrel of the bat and his hands are. Look at these pitches, not even getting to, and then look at where he's got his hand cocked in a position where he's able to make a move. Look at the vertical bat and the hands limits him, and then look at the angle of the bat and where his hands are, sets him up to be able to get to the area of the plate and pitches he normally wasn't able to. Great adjustment for a guy that wasn't going to play much unless he was able to find this mechanical fix.
A pitching change for Kansas City, and we'll be right back. So Ned Yost back to the bullpen. Time for another Hartford pitching change, and it'll be Luke Hochevar to take over with 1 out and 1 in here in the bottom of the 7th. Hochevar making his 2nd appearance of the series. His first ever postseason appearance came in Game 1 in Kansas City. Pitched a scoreless 9th in the loss. He gets Jose Altuve here and misses on his first offering. Gets a ball and no strikes.
Covering from Tommy John surgery, fitting in nice in a Royals bullpen that has had a few of those injuries lately.
Into foul territory, taking Moustakas near the fans to make the catch for out number 2. Well, the reaction to the home run was loud from everybody, including coming from Astros third base coach Gary Pettis. That's right, a 5-time Gold Glover has license to cheerlead. Why not? Here's George Springer now with 2 gone.
That's a huge run. That's that breathing room you want for your bullpen now. Only have to hit 2 innings out of relief and a 3-run lead.
Springer has doubled in 3 trips to the plate. It had been over a year since Chris Carter's last 3-hit game. Last September. He's probably not going to have an opportunity to get that additional plate appearance. But with a single, a double, and a home run, you start thinking about postseason cycles. There's never been one in Major League Baseball history.
And in New York, I believe, first time he ever had 3 walks in a game.
That's right.
So he's chopping down some things. Look, credit to him. I mean, he was an afterthought on the roster. As about a month and a half ago with this, he was in a horrendous stretch, and making that change we talked about allowed him to have a hot September and allowed him to even be at this point right now.
Well, we talked to A.J. Hinch about Carter specifically before this series began, as he was his hottest hitter down the stretch, and he represents such a wild card, such an X factor in the Houston attack. And A.J. talked about that bad stretch. It actually led to Chris's being sat for 10 days. Didn't reassign him, didn't start him for 10 days, didn't play him for 10 days. gave him an opportunity to make those adjustments with hitting coach Dave Hudgens, and we're seeing the results. Nothing further after the Carter home run, but his moon ball has made it 4-1 Astros.
And I think it's gonna be a long, long time till touchdown brings me round again to find.
A lot more postseason action coming your way later tonight at 8 Eastern. Do or die for the Blue Jays when they battle the Rangers on FS1. And then tomorrow's action has a lot to do with what happens today. If the Blue Jays win, you'll see 4 games starting with the Royals and Astros at 1 Eastern. And then Blue Jays Rangers at 4. And the action moves to TBS. Cardinals Cubs at 6. Dodgers Mets at 8:30. And if the Blue Jays are eliminated today, you'll still get the Royals and Astros at 1 p.m. Eastern on FS1. And then on TBS, Cards Cubs at 4:30. Dodgers Mets at 8. As they like to say, check your local listings, because all this has a lot to do with what happens in Arlington later on today. Pitching change. The Astros go to the bullpen for left-hander Tony Sipp, who's now appeared in all 3 games of the series. They'll face Hosmer, Morales, and Moustakas, with the Astros on top by 3.
Tony Sipp, good live fastball, straight over the top delivery. He'll come right after you. And he's got a nice slider to complement his fastball.
A ball and 2 strikes to Hosmer, who is 0 for 3 with a couple of strikeouts today. Just 1 for 11 in the series.
The only hit is that reach out 0-2 breaking ball that he got an RBI with. They've pitched him awfully tough, expanding the strike zone away and down.
Boy, how he made contact with that is a whole nother discussion. Fouled away. Ball was coming to his hip.
This ball didn't break like it was supposed to, and he goes to attack it, and it stayed in. And of course, we've seen this all too often here in the last few days, how hitters have violently fouled the ball off their knee. Twice, 2 players off their back knee, which is so hard to do. Correa and Kane. Kane's was in the regular season. Correa's was in this series.
A ball and 2 strikes to Eric Hosmer. Again, Sipp crowds him and misses in close. 2-2. Luke Gregerson's up in the bullpen for Houston. And the formula for A.J. Hinch today, on a day that he gets 7 terrific innings from Dallas Keuchel, is Keuchel, then somehow get to the 9th, and then Gregerson.
He's going to be tempted, and probably, if the situation calls for it, to steal a few more outs than 1 inning out of Gregerson. That's how important this game is. His ace did what he needed to do. He had to get 7 innings. He got it. If he can get a clean inning here, obviously makes it easier, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's traffic on the bases, tying run comes to the plate, and he goes and gets his closer.
Strike 3.
Well, for Keuchel, we're going to use StatCast to kind of tell the story a little bit, powered by Amazon Web Services. You see the extension, 6.2 feet, and the velocity, and then the perceived velocity. Obviously, the extension is going to affect the perceived velocity and what the hitter recognize as what's coming, but his movement, more than anything, is the reason why this guy has been and has had an unbelievable year.
Here's Kendrys Morales now. Morales is singled, reached on an error, and grounded out. It they're going to be talking about Dallas Keuchel for a while after this one, should the Astros hang on to win. And we can take a look at StatCast. We can talk about the 7 strikeouts, the jams he pitched out of, the soft contact. The pitch count itself, J.P. Morosi, is a whole nother story. I mean, that's a Herculean effort here today.
124 pitches, Matt. Only 3 other pitchers this decade in the postseason threw that many or more. Their names: Roy Halladay, Justin Verlander, Clayton Kershaw. There is now no doubt, Matt, he is among the elite of the elite.
A ball and 2 strikes to Morales. Just some further context, and Tony Sipp has struck out his first batter today. The Royals have struck out 8 times this afternoon. The Royals don't strike out. No team has had fewer games where their lineup has struck out 8 or more times than Kansas City. And Morales doing a very good job to get to a full count here after starting 0-2.
But they make you work and earn everything you get. A lot of 2-strike counts end up going 2-2, 3-2. Credit the Astros and primarily their starter for executing with 3-2 and 2 strikes as well as they have against this team.
Morales reaches on ball 4. What a fine plate appearance by the veteran switch hitter. Here comes pitching coach Brent Strom now. What a matchup this is for Brent Strom. Guy's been around baseball his whole life. He's worked in a number of organizations, including being the Kansas City Royals pitching coach in between his stints here in Houston. He's done so much in the Astros organization, minor league pitching coordinator, AAA pitching coach, been around here for a long time, so it would seem. And he is to be given a lot of credit for the likes of Dallas Keuchel, Colin McHugh finding himself. We talk about pitching coaches that don't get a lot of attention, guys like Ray Searage in Pittsburgh, and you know, a lot of the better pitching coaches in baseball aren't the guys that thump their chest real loudly, and Brent Strom is certainly among them.
Yeah,
probably doesn't get enough credit.
I agree with you. He's done a great job.
So here's Moustakas now. Moustakas' first postseason hit this year came on a 1-out double in the 6th.
Yeah, he's not happy about this. He's telling Mike Everett that ball's down, and he has a point, but unfortunately for most of the game that has been close to majority being called strikes.
Launches that one foul. We mentioned this regarding Moustakas in game 2, how good he has been down the stretch against left-handed pitching. It's much more difficult to kind of game plan against Moustakas by stunting him with left-handers out of the bullpen than it once was. That's the overall improvement, but down the stretch from September 1st on, he hit .410 against southpaws. A ball and 2 strikes. Game 4 tomorrow, and this series will move back to FS1. Yordano Ventura and Lance McCullers. And it's going to be an elimination game for somebody. Sips 1-2.
Look for something to get Moustakas away If he can go back to that slider here, he's thrown a couple fastballs and hit with them. That one being fouled off.
Salvador Perez waits on deck. A swing and a miss. Second strikeout of the inning for Tony Sipp.
And there it was, that breaking ball sweeping. And now AJ's going to steal one more out of his closer.
It will be a little extra duty asked of Luke Gregerson. A.J. Hinch makes the move to his stopper. We'll be right back. Only MLB Tonight brings you live postseason coverage before and after every game, highlights from every series, breakdowns from baseball's best analysts. You're only minutes away from a great play on the MLB Tonight postgame show, coming up after us on MLB Network. Sean Casey and Dan Plesac will try to temper Brian Kenny's enthusiasm, because Brian has been watching this series like this is about the favorite thing that Brian could do, watch these two teams. And why not? It's been a lot of fun to watch. Luke Gregerson is called on here to try to convert on a 4-out save opportunity. He's got a runner at first and 2 gone.
Sliders, sliders, and sliders, but his two-seam fastball is pretty good. But the first pitch there against Perez was a pretty tight slider that has become his go-to pitch.
Oh, 0-2 on Salvador Perez. Luke Gregerson has 50 career saves to his credit in his regular season career. Only 4 of those, as you can see, have been of the little extra variety of 4 or more outs. And it's been a while since the last one.
You know, it's a good pitch when everybody, for the most part, knows you're going to throw it, and the hitters can't do much with it.
Yeah, call him a more filled out version of Sergio Romo.
Yeah.
Part of the offseason overhaul for the Astros. Gregerson in his first year in Houston, and he's been terrific this year. Perez taps it out to third for Gonzalez, who'll go the short way. Nothing in the Kansas City 8th. To the bottom of the inning. Rookie sensation Carlos Correa leads it off for an Astros team that leads it 4-1. This Division Series telecast on MLB Network is presented by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. And sponsored in part by Chobani. To love this life is to live it naturally. And by Chevrolet, find new roads. Carlos Correa has a leadoff base hit to start things in the last of the 8th. Well, people around baseball and around sports are still reacting to what happened out in Los Angeles yesterday. John, I'm curious your take on this slide and subsequent broken leg sustained by Ruben Tejada.
Well, the first thing you see is that's not a normal slide, right? I mean, obviously he's trying to take him out, which he did, but he slid so late. It's amazing. He did not get seriously injured.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate. The situation ended up helping the Dodgers win that baseball game, and unfortunately cost the Mets a baseball player. So in the heat of the game, in the moment, yeah, it looks ugly. It ended up being ugly. But LA went on to win, and we'll see what the rest of the series holds for the attention that gets.
Colby Rasmus batting with a runner aboard now to start things in the 8th. Each of the last 5 Astros hits, by the way, have come on the first pitch. And that's a group of hits that includes the home run by Chris Carter that made it the 4-1 game we're watching. Rasmus with a high drive into right that actually hits the roof. That's a fair ball in play. I cannot believe it. I cannot sit here and look at you and say that I can believe what I just saw. We had Charlie Relaford up here from Major League Baseball, the longtime umpire, who came up here and was kind enough to tell us about the ground rules at Minute Maid Park, and he was going through the roof saying if it hits here, if it hits there, and we're like, Charlie, come on, it's not going to hit the roof. And he said it's hit the roof before. This is not Tampa Bay with the catwalks. I mean, that's outer space up there.
It's unbelievable. I mean, the likelihood of it is very small, and of course the likelihood of it hitting it and you tracking it at the same time to be able to make the play is very small. And when it's going good for Colby Rasmus, it is going good. This ball had to be hit at its peak, as high as you can hit it, to stay in the ballpark and then hit one of those beams. It's we may never see it again.
I cannot believe we saw it today. The ground rule reads as such: if a ball hits the roof and it bounds into foul territory from there, it's a foul ball. It's playable, but if it hits the roof and drops into fair space as it did there, it is a fair ball in play. Evan Gattis follows with a blooper that's fouled. Postseason games have extra umpires on the crew. Right into no man's land. Wow. Unbelievable.
And you know, the reason no one's at second base, for obvious, you're going out knowing that that ball is going to get caught, and then you never anticipate it's going to bounce back 20 feet.
Royals Hall of Famer George Brett. Yep, hit the roof. So now it's 0-1 to Evan Gattis. We were discussing with Charlie Relaford the duties of the 2 additional umpires that are on these postseason crews, and in a park like this one, Lance Barksdale, who's in left, and Angel Hernandez, who you see there, who is in right, they are particularly busy because there are a lot of different affectations to the ground rules here that just don't exist anywhere else, such as what we just saw with the roof. This is a tricky ballpark from an officiating standpoint.
And the reason they're so close, you see the umpires so close, they are in charge of a ball that goes past them, fair or foul. And rather than being closer to the foul pole or back closer to the wall, it's easier for them to see the ball with the distance behind them than to look straight up and follow the ball. So that's why you see them positioned the way they are. Obviously, they can go out and help out what would be normally a second base umpire's job on traps in the outfield and so forth.
Counts a ball and 2 strikes on Evan Gattis.
Gattis has been jumping out a lot here in the last couple of bats, really not tracking the pitches and or the location.
Into foul territory for Eric Hosmer to make the catch.
Well, right here, when you look at the launch angle, which is responsible for hitting the ball obviously high and far, Colby Rasmus may not have jumped out to you, But then again, maybe Matt Carpenter wouldn't have jumped out to you.
Yeah.
But those guys from the left side have been able to create the right angle for an increased home run total, especially for Matt Carpenter. And now you've seen what Colby Rasmus has been able to do.
So here's Carlos Gomez once again. He had a big RBI single in the 6th. That made it a 3-1 game. Carter's home run the following inning spelled the 4-1 advantage. Yet again, it's an Astro swinging at the first pitch. 0-1 the count to Carlos Gomez. We have seen a little bit of everything here today. Terrific starting pitching, power, some unusual plays such as Gomez making contact with a bunt on his way out of the box. And then most recently the roof coming into play here, JP.
Yeah, Matt, and I checked with Jeff Luhnow, the Astros GM, asking him, has that ever happened before? He told me, I don't think so. Biggio says he's never seen it. So, guys, if Biggio's never seen it, it hasn't happened.
Wow. That's about as good a litmus test as I think you could have. I think Craig Biggio's seen it. He's been here, let alone seen just about everything that's happened in this building. The 0-1 to Gomez is fouled away. Well, I'll tell you, there are a couple of hitters in this lineup, John, a couple of right-handed hitting Astros that take what appear to be the wildest pass at a baseball. It looks like when Gomez and Springer swing the bat that they're on roller skates.
Yeah, they're definitely trying to do something, some kind of damage when they're up there and they're trying to leave. It looks like every time they swing, which may not be the case, but Gomez starts open, closes just a little bit, and then tries to fire. Gaddis takes those kind of swings, but his mechanics to the baseball are a lot different.
O'Chavers 0-2, misses upstairs. It's a ball and 2 strikes to Carlos Gomez now.
Well, the injury hasn't tempered Gomez's ability to swing at 70%, that's for sure.
To 2 balls and 2 strikes now. You saw Marwin Gonzalez on deck. He had a pinch hitting appearance in the 6th and popped out to end the inning. When Kansas City bats in the 9th, and they are hoping to have their chance down only 3. They'll have the 8, 9, then top of the order hitters Gordon, Rios, and Escobar. A big swing and a miss, strike 3.
Well, pretty much right down the middle. I don't know if he was in between, thinking he might see something off speed, but could not time the baseball.
So now a pinch hitter as Jed Lowry's grabbed the bat. Jed Lowry is the most experienced Astro in terms of postseason baseball. This is his 21st postseason game. You're talking about a great majority of players who are into the postseason this year as a maiden voyage. Lowry had a pinch hitting appearance in game 2 in Kansas City, and here he is off the bench again today. Runners at first and second with 2 gone.
Well, they definitely don't want to get to the next guy. He's on fire, and Carter, so they would love to get Jed Lowry out and deal with Carter tomorrow.
0-1 to Lowry.
Think about the pressure that Dallas Keuchel really had going into this game. Everybody in the stadium, everybody watching expected him to win.
Fly ball into center field. Lorenzo Cain is there for it. And the Royals will come to the plate in the ninth with the 8-9 and top of the order hitters trailing by 3. A capacity crowd here at Minute Maid Park, 42,674, 3 outs away from moving to being 1 game away from a date in the ALCS. Jed Lowry, as you saw, taking over defensively as Alex Gordon leads things off against Luke Gregerson, who'll try to finish it off. He got the last out in the 8th. Gordon, Rios, and Escobar here in the Kansas City 9th.
Royals would love to try to put some traffic, just something, get interesting. They haven't been able to use their weapons off the bench in their speed.
Yeah. Gordon with a shot into the opposite field. Gomez and Rasmus are watching, and that one is gone. Alex Gordon with an opposite field home run to make it a 2-run game in the 9th.
Well, this two-seam fastball stays up, and rather than trying to pull it, he goes the other way with an opposite field home run. Now a runner on, and of course tying run is at the plate. So anyway, anyhow, the Royals are trying to get somebody on base.
Alex Rios walked in the 7th, 0 for 2 tonight.
See this pitch, see the location, it's up. He barrels it real good, and he knows right away. The pitcher knows right away. He had to hit it obviously a lot higher. We're in that portion of the park.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, the only drama with a ball hit out to that part of this ballpark is, you have to watch closely in terms of that yellow line and the ground rules. There are some tricky fences and tricky angles out there, but as you can see, boy, that cleared it by plenty.
Because it's so short and left, that little dart out gap in left center makes it look like it's a lot farther, but in that 362 is not terrible.
Rios with the ball well hit into center field. Gomez on the run, and he gets there to make the catch at the wall. Some very loud contact against Luke Gregerson here in the Kansas City 9th, but the Royals are down to their final 2 outs.
I'm telling you right now, I know he's got a side issue, but tracking the ball in the outfield has not been a problem. As soon as that ball's hit, you see him react. This ball is crushed for about 395. If you're a center fielder and you like to run, it's a pretty good center field gap to gap to be able to go after fly balls.
Alcides Escobar now, and he takes strike 1. Escobar singled on the first pitch of the game and has been kept quiet since. And there's the bloop. A base hit brings the tying run to the plate with 1 away. As the old adage goes, a bloop and a blast, and the Royals are right back in business.
A couple of the pitches been up. That one wasn't hit very good. The other 2 were hit extremely well. And now you've got the meat of the order with the exception of a double play ball. It looks like Cain will have an opportunity to get back to the plate.
Ben Zobrist has hit safely in each of the games so far in this series. 5 for 12. And the Royals are making all kinds of noise. Did they think that Gregerson balked?
Well, time was called at home. It would have been had time not been called, but they didn't see home plate umpire Mike Everett hold up his hand.
Yeah, boy, half the bench was up out of their seat there. So here we go with Zobrist. On the ground is shortstop. Correa to Altuve, back to Carter. Not in time. Zobrist avoids being doubled up to give Lorenzo Cain an opportunity here in the ninth.
That ball was absolutely scalded. Correa, with his great hands, even at 6'3", looking to make the adjustment right there. Of course, Altuve coming a long way away. Not in position to make the proper throw to first base to double up Zobrist.
Zobrist had that beat even if Carter had been able to make that play cleanly.
Well, if you're Cain, I can't imagine you not wanting or not thinking you're going to get nothing but sliders here.
Lorenzo Cain represents the tying run for Kansas City. He represents the 27th and final out for Houston. Strike one. The Astros 2 strikes away from taking a 2-1 advantage in this best-of-5 series. Teams tied 1-1 who win Game 3 go on to win Division Series 80% of the time. Houston 1 strike away from that decisive advantage. A ball and 2 strikes to Lorenzo Cain. It's been a pair of home runs for the Royals today, and that's it. Cain's in the 4th, Gordon's here in the 9th. And the Astros' first home postseason game in a decade nets them the win that puts them 1 victory away from moving on to the ALCS. Houston pitching outstanding on this day, led by Dallas Keuchel, who stays perfect at home this year.
That last pitch got it done, but that pitch, Cain had a chance. Boy, this is a hanging slider at 2 strikes, and you could just see protecting and trying to get a ball up. Cain thought that was the pitch he was looking for, but A.J. Hinch is sure glad that he swung and missed.
The orange out in the stands, the bearded orange out, if you will. And this capacity crowd leaves happy today. Boy, something happened today in this game, John, that didn't happen at all in Kansas City's superb postseason run last year. And that is the Royals lineup struck out 10 times. That didn't happen at all last postseason run. And again, tip your cap to Dallas Keuchel, Tony Sipp, and Luke Gregerson as well. But Keuchel was really the story today, as he stands by with J.P. Morosi.
Thank you, Matt. Dallas, you got to take me into that 7th inning conversation on the mound. Lorenzo Cain coming to the plate. What was that conversation like with your manager, A.J. Hinch?
Not really much. It was just, I guess, just checking my heartbeat, and I wanted to pitch to their best hitter, and I thought I deserved the shot too, and just worked out in my favor.
Dallas, we talked on the broadcast about how you are now one of only 4 pitchers this decade to throw 124 pitches or more in a postseason game, joining Halladay, Verlander, and Kershaw. You're with those names, you'll probably win the Cy Young, but what does it mean to you now that you're building your own postseason legend?
It means a lot, but it all starts with Castro behind the plate. He puts his body through hell. When I pitch, I like to throw the back foot slider a lot, and a lot of them don't come out in the trajectory I like, and he's out there blocking every single pitch, it seems like, and we have a great relationship. I can't say enough about that guy, and I would love to have him for years to come.
Dallas, still perfect at home. What does this ballpark mean to you?
It means everything to me. You saw what the crowd was today, and even when I gave up that solo home run, I knew if I kept the team in the game, we had a pretty good shot to win. Electric crowd, and it was 10 years coming. So hopefully we can bring the same electricity tomorrow and have a good game.
Dallas, I had a chance to meet your dad during the game. I know your parents are here. They mean so much to you. What's your message to them today?
I just appreciate everything they've done for me. They afforded me to do whatever I loved growing up, whether that was football, basketball, or baseball, and they never forced me to do anything. I love every single time I can bring them down to watch me pitch or just to watch the team play. And I know my dad is one of the biggest baseball nuts you'll find out there. And my mom is just nuts, period, whenever it comes to baseball. She's a nervous wreck, but both of those, both of my parents, they've done a lot for me, and I really appreciate that, and I love them to death.
Last one for you. You're going to come here tomorrow with a chance to watch your buddy Lance McCullers pitch this team to the ALCS. What's that going to feel like?
It's going to feel good. I'm sure I'll be nervous. When I can't pitch, I'm super nervous just because I'm not in control of the game. But I have a feeling he's going to come out and do his thing. He's been just as good at home, just like myself, but he's got electric stuff. He's got the 95, he's got the power curveball, and a pretty good running changeup. So they're going to have their hands full over there, but he's going to have his hands full as well, and we'll see which way the dice rolls.
Dallas, congratulations. Back to you guys.
Well, for Dallas Keuchel, he did everything. I told you, the pressure on this guy to deliver when everybody thought he was going to win. And let's take a look at StatCast to see how he did it, powered by Amazon Web Services. It's the exit velocity we showcased. It's the exit velocity that was displayed. 60.9 miles an hour is going to usually result in an easy out, and that's what he was able to do. 120 some pitches. He's your ace. He's the guy. The future for the Astros is now, and they have a chance to win a division championship series tomorrow.
Well, Keuchel very complimentary of his catcher Jason Castro, who is standing by with JP.
Thank you, Matt. Jason, 7th inning conversation. You see your manager, A.J. Hinch, coming out to the mound. Was there any doubt in your mind Dallas Keuchel was going to stay into that ball game?
I knew he'd stay in. That's the kind of competitor he is. He's been doing it all year, and that's who we want out on the mound. Even though he'd got to him earlier in the game, we knew if Dallas made his pitches, he'd be just fine.
He is really building a legend here in this month of October, Jason. You've worked with him now for a number of years. What's your relationship like, and how much fun is it now to see him flourish here in October?
It's awesome. We've come a long way together, and it's been a great experience. He's very professional about the way he goes about his business, and that's all we can ask for. So it's been a lot of fun to watch him progress and make those strides and become the pitcher that he is right now.
Jason, it takes the wisdom of a Stanford man to time that first postseason hit just perfectly as you did today. Take me through that at bat.
Yeah, the guys that got it on and ahead of me really set the stage. Valbuena with the walk and then Carter with another hit, was huge. So that gave me the opportunity to come up and just try to put something in play. And, they were tough all day today, making good pitches. And I was just trying to get something out over that I could put in play in the middle of the field and at least get one in. And luckily enough, we got them both.
Jason, congratulations. Back to you guys.
Thank you.
JP, thanks. It was Jason Castro's first postseason hit. That is our Master Pass by MasterCard moment of the game.
Well, this was huge. He'd been struggling all of September and coming in. That hit put him ahead. They never looked back. The timing of that hit was perfect.
Bottom of the order was very effective for A.J. Hinch's guys today. Not only did Jason Castor have the 2-run single in the 5th, but of course Chris Carter with 3 hits, including a home run. And the Astros find themselves 1 win away from moving on this 2015 postseason. Final score here at Minute Maid Park today. Houston wins it by a final of 4-2 to take a 2-1 advantage over the defending American League champion Kansas City Royals. Tonight at 8 Eastern on FS1. Game 3 of the other division series in the AL. The Blue Jays are in Arlington in a must-win situation with the Rangers trying to advance to the American League Championship Series. Tomorrow at 1 Eastern, these Royals and Astros. Game 4 of this series also on FS1. Coming up next on MLB Network, MLB Tonight with Brian Kenny, Sean Casey, and Dan Plesac. For John Smoltz and John Palmarosi, Matt Vasgersian saying goodnight from Minute Maid Park in Houston. Thanks for watching this Division Series telecast on MLB Network, presented by Geico.